Welcome back, Triple T's. It's your host, M. In today's video, we are taking a deep dive into the world of criminals. Specifically, botched bank robbers. From a chick who made a YouTube video detailing her bank robbery, to a man who escaped a life sentence because the judge said, "You're not good at this." I am proud to introduce you to 10 of the world's dumbest bank robbers. Alrighty, bring in the lineup. We didn't really want to rob a bank. We were just talking about it and thinking about it and joking how we could actually do it. And then, before you know it, it just turned serious. This is a quote from Anthony. Him and his friend Luke, both 19, were dubbed the Dumb and Dumber bank robbers. They were both from Australia, but were on a working visa in Colorado in 2005 when they armed themselves with replica pistols, covered their faces in masks, stormed a bank, and fled with $141,500 in cash. You may be wondering, why? They sound successful. Well, one of their biggest problems, they had a distinct Australian accent. And since they were regulars at the bank they chose to rob, their voices gave them away immediately. To add to their nonsense, they were wearing name tags during their robbery. After their robbery, they tried buying a Rolex with the stolen money, attempted to buy one-way tickets to Mexico, and even tipped a cab driver $20,000. Before attempting to catch a flight out of Denver, the day after their robbery, they took photos of themselves with their loot, and then the two were arrested. All the photos were found on their digital camera. They served 4 years in a federal prison, and Anthony even said, "You'd have to be retarded to think you can get away with it." Well, Anthony, I'm not the one who said it, but I would have to agree with you there. When you do something illegal, posting about it on the internet is not such a great idea. When you do something really illegal, like, rob a bank, that's something you really shouldn't post on the internet. Apparently, Hannah didn't think about that when she decided to make a YouTube video not only showing off her loot, but explaining how and why she got it. Hannah is from Nebraska, and yes, she successfully pulled off a bank robbery. She stole a car, robbed a bank, and now I'm rich. I can pay off my college financial aid, and tomorrow I'm going on a shopping spree. Only problem is, when she posted her video on YouTube explaining all of this, she was found very quickly and arrested. Her video was also used against her in court, and I can almost guarantee that the judge is thinking, easiest case ever. All I have to say to Hannah, smooth move, X-Lax. Pro tip, if you rob a bank, don't celebrate it by posting photos with the money on social media. Especially in your mouth, because that's gross. It seems pretty obvious, but a couple from Ohio did just that several days after robbing a bank. John and Ashley had successfully robbed a bank. John had gone in, and with the help from Ashley and her makeup, all his tattoos were covered. This made things harder for detectives. He demanded the money and fled after receiving it. Ashley was his getaway driver. Detectives had followed several leads with no success on the case. That is, until they started getting some tips to go look at these Facebook posts. One with the money in his mouth, captioned, "That's called a McStack." Authorities found them with ease after this, and they were both sent to McPrison. Oh, and it turns out, John had just been released from prison. He was 1 month into a 3-year probation. Can you guess what his charge was? Bank robbery. That's right. And he decided to rob another one with his girlfriend. And he got caught. Again. This just goes to show that stupid is forever, and it can't be fixed. Just before noon on Monday, Edner walked into a PNC bank wearing a gray hoodie, a black baseball cap under the hood, a surgical mask, and white gloves. According to a witness, Edner got in line, waited for the teller to finish with a customer. When it was his turn, Edner handed the teller a deposit ticket in which he wrote the date, the amount of $10,000 in the section marked net deposit, and the words no die packs and armed. At that point, the teller realized that Edner was aiming to rob the bank. and activated the silent alarm. The teller, who was trying to stall until cops arrived, asked Edner if he wanted to make a deposit or a withdrawal. That is when the teller gave him a withdrawal ticket to put his information down. The teller then asked Edner to show an ATM card or a photo ID. And just like that, Edner whipped out his ID with his photo, name, and date of birth and handed it over. 12 minutes later, police entered the bank and stood in line behind him. Edner had no choice but to confess to the attempted robbery. Definitely not the sharpest bulb in the shed. Let's just hope he doesn't make that same mistake again. Dennis was arrested by police after robbing a Michigan bank one Wednesday afternoon. However, this wasn't an intense, high-speed, life-or-death police chase, or a dangerous shootout crime scene. In fact, police officers simply scooped him up at a bar. Talk about an interesting after-work happy hour. Dennis robbed the bank by walking in, handing the teller a note which demanded less than $300 in cash, and walking back out, gleefully with money in hand. He didn't run or escape in a getaway car. He simply walked down a block to a nearby bar. Keep in mind, it was only a block away. He had just committed a bank robbery and less than 30 minutes later was sitting down to enjoy his beer. As police officers caught up with him, not that they actually had to do much catching up, Dennis was just finishing his second beer. Matthew, a police department official, said there was no conversation. There was no confrontation at all. It was just a matter of fact, here you are, let's go to jail. And now, because of his criminal record, including 6 previous felony convictions, he is facing 5 to 20 years in prison. All this for less than $300. And that is why he was called the dumbest criminal in 2017. Way to go, Dennis. I hope your beer tasted good, because it looks like you won't be having one for a long time. Police say a man tried to open a bank account in Pennsylvania right before he decided to rob the bank. But only after he had handed over not one, but 2 forms of ID. Yes, Daniel walked into a bank and said he wanted to open a new account. He gave the employees his name and they were in the process of opening the new account. He had given his photo ID and another form of ID when he had a change of heart. He finally told the employee that he really didn't need a new account. He was just there to rob the place. He got away with a small amount of cash, and while he was driving off, he crashed into another car. Meanwhile, the bank had contacted police, gave them the copies they had taken of Daniel's ID, and issued a warrant for his arrest. Daniel must have had quite the nerves because he had reached a neighboring county where he crashed his vehicle a second time. That is when police took him into custody. Sounds like he needs a getaway driver, and someone to actually help him plan out his robberies. Including the whole don't give your identity away part. Okay, this one is almost as bad as the last one, except he wasn't trying to open an account. He already had an account at that bank, so there was no need for a new one. Paul walked into a bank in Kent and held a knife to the teller's neck. However, instead of demanding cash like literally every other bank robber, he demanded that the money be deposited directly into his bank account. Somehow, the teller managed to hit the panic button and Paul got nervous and fled. But he didn't go far. He went 400 feet away, actually. And what was he doing only 400 feet away from that bank? Well, he was at another bank, trying to rob it, of course. Paul's lawyer told the court that his client had never been in trouble before and described his attempt to rob the bank as ridiculous. He said it was ridiculous. It had only one ending, and here it is. Why exactly was Paul trying to rob a bank? Well, he needed money to book a flight to Corfu for a job interview as a golf coach, of course. First rule of bank robbing: make sure you have your morning cup of joe before you get behind the wheel. Or screen your wheelman for narcolepsy. Ricardo missed that instruction and was found asleep inside the getaway car of a botched bank robbery in Florida. His friends didn't do much better than him, although they did manage to stay awake the whole time. Ricardo's friends went into a bank, which was closed, meaning the money was all locked up inside the vault. So instead of cold hard cash, they collected as many quarters, dimes, and nickels as they could fit into bags. When the men tried to escape, the weight of the coins weighed them down, so they were easily apprehended by police. But all the sirens and commotion didn't wake up Ricardo. Maybe his buddies were just taking too long, or maybe it was the fact that Ricardo was drunk and passed out in the getaway car, which was parked right in front of the bank. Either way, these three guys have made the worst Three Musketeers team ever. Can you say bank robbery fail? Because this one is just ridiculous. Norfolk police arrested two men, and it's not hard to see why they got arrested. Two men broke into a Norfolk bank. Now this is a great start. Actually, breaking into the bank is a key step in robbing the bank. At some point during the heist, you have to physically force your way into the bank. Unfortunately, this is where it really starts to go downhill. One of the men was found naked inside the bank. I really don't understand why you would have to get naked to rob a bank. I'm by no means a bank robber, so I don't want to be hasty, but it seems like you'd want your clothes on while you're robbing the bank so that you don't leave any prints, identifying marks, drops of sweat, or worse, feces. That's right, not only was one of the men naked, but police found feces all over the floor. What possible use could this serve? Don't poo on the floor while you're robbing a bank. You should definitely relieve yourself before beginning the heist. This must be like bank robbery 101. The police believe alcohol was involved. Duh. That is the only logical explanation. Advice to any future bank robbers: keep your clothes on and don't defecate on the floor. Now, that is no guarantee for success, but it is a great first step. He may just be UK's worst bank robber, and he used it to his advantage. Terence, 61, was shown mercy by a Liverpool Crown Court judge for being so bad at committing his crimes. Fortunately, you're not very good at this. Yes, the judge actually said this to him. Between November 23rd and December 3rd, Terence had robbed 6 banks, but left empty-handed every time except once. During the attempted heists, Terence wore a scarf over his mouth and muffled his voice so much that bank tellers could not even hear his demands for cash. He also claimed to have a gun during the attempted stick-ups, but the gun was actually a gray brush wrapped in tape. On one occasion, bank staff realized the weapon was fake and refused to fork over cash. One worker even told Terence to sod off. During his only successful robbery out of the 6, Terence made off with $500, and he left the clerk crying hysterically. Why was Terence robbing banks? He told police after his arrest that he would have continued trying to rob banks to pay off his $2,600 in gambling debt. And now that he was spared a life sentence, I wonder if he's gonna try it again. We could only be so lucky. Well, that's all we have for you today. I hope you enjoyed 10 of the worst bank robbers. They do one thing very well. They all make us feel very smart. Thanks for watching. Thanks for liking. Thanks for subscribing. And as always, stay smart, Troop TT.